Bob, I wanted to get you to talk about your astonishing career because it's 3 decades plus. You are very well known as a clinician. You teach in your clinic here in Reading. You teach globally. You are world renowned for your knowledge for developing new techniques. What is it that sets your approach here at the Dr. BK Clinic apart?
Ever since I started, I have been focused at making sure that the patients are always at the centre of any treatment planning process. We're always mindful that whatever treatment that we're going to suggest for a patient is coming from the right place.
Okay.
And that means we remain ethical in our approach. So we don't just use techniques or concepts that sort of are fashionable for the sake of using them, or something that you've seen on Instagram or YouTube or what have you. They've got to be, to a large part, evidence-based and come with a wealth of experience either from yourself or colleagues that you trust. It's an accumulation of that knowledge and having your thought processes in the right place to be able to deliver the best treatments for those patients in the safest manner possible.
So I know that ethical practice is the absolute cornerstone of what you do. How tricky is it when patients come to you with unrealistic expectations of what treatment might deliver? And is that something that's got worse over the years?
I think it's disappointing more than anything else, because I think patients are very much, in a manner of speaking, slaves to social media.
Sure.
And they're quite easily manipulated by what is happening out there. For the large part, many patients that seek out aesthetic treatments are by default insecure about something. And so it doesn't take much for somebody who lacks confidence to be manipulated by something that they see on TikTok or Instagram. And I think as practitioners, we need to always be mindful of that, of these little nuances and vulnerabilities, and we must make sure that we're able to say no to a patient when it's appropriate and manage expectations accordingly. Because if we don't do that and we just do what a patient wants us to do, then we're just as guilty as the messaging that's out there, the fakery that's out there. You know, we now have not only filtered images, but we have AI generated imagery out there.
Because all this AI and filtered fakery, as you put it, it's changing people's perception of beauty out there, particularly the youngsters.
As long as we are steadfast in our approach, we don't fall victim of it ourselves, then we are able to deliver the very best advice for our patients.
Now, I know your teaching takes you all around the globe. How does that play into your teaching?
Traveling the globe and being invited all over the globe, every single continent, allows me to explore these cultures and these little nuances, as you said. And I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by these little variations. At the same time, we must make sure that individuals remain individuals. And for the large part, these little racial differences and cultural differences are maintained.
When you're teaching, you have to teach really precise aesthetic techniques, but then you've got to teach people artistry, because that's what makes a face look particularly lovely. You're known for being able to do this, but how do you teach practitioners to be artists? Everybody
comes from different backgrounds, and I really think that shapes how you view things in life. So when I'm teaching, I'm very aware that not everybody is able to very quickly ascertain what is aesthetic and what is not aesthetic. And within that, you've got variances. You know? So it's getting our delegates to understand and appreciate what makes a person individual, how does a person age, what is generally deemed to be unaesthetic, and what is deemed to be aesthetic. Now, of course, that's a challenge because fashions change, trends change from decade upon decade. We only have to look back at Picasso's ladies,
For sure.
as that was seen as aesthetic back then. So we do have to have one eye on what is seen as aesthetic by the majority of people, and I think that has to be your barometer, and then somehow package that into an ethical form of teaching. It's a forever evolving process. So my efforts as a teacher, as a mentor, is to enable clinicians to be given those skills by being mindful, being really fussy about how you treat a patient, how you assess a patient, and then plan accordingly. And then, of course, we've got to take into account the varying expectations that patients have.
All of that.
At different age groups.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, a lot of balls that are being juggled here. And so I think to truly master this, we've always got to be thinking about the patient, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, take on board, don't have a sort of hoodwinked approach to this. It's nonsensical for us to not be aware of what's going on out there, whether we agree with it or not, and then decide where is your line. Where is your limit as a practitioner? As an ethical practitioner, everybody's going to have a limit to what they feel comfortable to work to. And if that patient is requesting treatment that is outside of your comfort zone, then the right and proper thing is to say no.
How do you choose whether to pick up on a particular procedure or device, or whether to let it pass by?
This has got to be underpinned by evidence-based research.
Yeah.
Good, solid, peer-reviewed evidence-based research, of course. And then I've got to be sufficiently impressed by a particular device or technology before I actually let it loose on my patient base.
Yeah.
When I started aesthetics, there was a clear distinction between surgical or non-surgical treatment.
Yes.
And there were clear limitations to what could be achieved without surgery. But I have to say, we're in 2025 now. There's no question. We're at a point now that with innovations, developments, evidence-based research, and my own research and my own techniques that I've developed, that I can truly present a very viable solution for many of my patients without having to resort to surgery.
Yeah.
And I never thought that would be possible decades ago. For example, non-surgical rhinoplasty that I'm performing now for my patients, many of my patients have had surgery. Many of my patients are doctors, as you know. 35+% of my patients are actually doctors in the industry. And they've had surgery, and they wish they never had surgery, and I'm having to correct them. And they often say to me, I had a septorhinoplasty. This patient will say to me, I had a septorhinoplasty. I still can't breathe out of one nostril. I carry out their non-surgical rhinoplasty, and suddenly they can actually breathe out of the impinged nostril. I mean, so we're making some serious breakthroughs. So I think we're at a really good place here where we can offer viable solutions to our patients without the need for surgery in many cases. And I'm not saying that surgery doesn't have a place.
What motivates you to keep innovating and teaching in this field?
If you want to be at the top of your game, you've got to be prepared to never stop learning and never stop wanting to be innovative.
Okay.
Because you become stagnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a dangerous position to be for anybody who wants to be at the top of their game.
Yeah.
So if you're at the top of your game, you're seen, you're revered by your colleagues, you've got to make sure that you are always one step ahead, and you're always willing to invest in your development.
Yeah. So how do you keep learning? Because you're spending so much time teaching. Where do you find the time for learning, and who are you learning from?
I've always had the ability to listen to every single person, whether I agree with them or not.
Okay.
And it's down to me to decipher what I feel is appropriate and what is not. I always like to have differing opinions. I think that's healthy. So I'll get that from a conference that I will be lecturing at. So I'll listen to various speakers, and I will take on board certain things and it will validate certain things that I also agree with and teach. So I think it enables me to get a really good sound understanding as to what is being taught out there, what is seen as the right thing to do, and it enables me to be one step ahead.
Now, you've taught upwards of 60,000 practitioners, haven't you? So looking to the future, what are the key things that are going to be shaping the aesthetic leaders of the future? As
long as every single practitioner runs a patient-centered practice, whereby the patient is always at the center of their interests, so that they're always thinking that their patient is like a family member. I mean, that's a good analogy, really. Treat every patient like a family member.
Yeah.
I don't think you
take
go.
that care.
I don't think you go too far wrong. You know, don't do anything to a patient that you wouldn't do on a family member. As you've seen, I treat all of my family.
Yeah.
My mother, my wife gets treated. All my team members are treated by me. If we're always mindful as practitioners that, you know, our patients are like family and we treat them accordingly, I don't think you can really go too far wrong. I think it grounds you as an individual. If you treat your patients that way, you sleep better at night. You know that you really look forward to going to work every single day. I'm so excited. When I come to work, I look at my day list and I'm excited when I see a patient, a new challenge. I'm excited because I enjoy what I do, because I know at the end of the day, I'm going to make somebody happier than they were before they came to see me. And I like that feeling.
What do you do to chill out when you're not working? You're working so much of the time.
When I'm not working, I do like to exercise. I think that's really good for us, certainly good for your mind as well as your body. So I do take care of that. I like to have some me time. That could just be putting my headphones on and listening to a podcast or my favorite Netflix show, for example.
Sure.
But that's me time. That's my form of meditation. I don't actually meditate as much as I should, but in a sense, that's a form of meditation for me because it switches me off.
Alongside all this, there's IAFA and all your charity work. Can you explain what IAFA is?
Yeah, IAFA is for me, one of the best things that I have created. It's enabled me to give back to communities and also the profession. It allows me to educate practitioners from all over the world, to put them on the same level playing field, regardless of their background, as long as they come from a medical, clinical background. But it also allows us collectively to raise a lot of money for needy charities. And so I think the combination of being able to educate as well as create something big for charities, I think is a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Looking back to 1992, if somebody had said they're looking into the crystal ball and they see Dr. Bob Khanna is doing all these things that you've done, what would you have thought?
I would be in disbelief.
Because this whole area of aesthetics really didn't exist there.
Completely, no. Not at all.
We first came through the toxins, then the injectable fillers, then the devices. You know, you've been there for all of it. But it's very hard to imagine a whole thing that didn't exist.
Yeah,
you'd have laughed at them?
I think I would. I would have. I would be in complete shock, disbelief, because this is completely uncharted territory back then. You know, it was completely the unknown.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a bit like talking about, you know, like the electric cars or something like this.
Or
you know,
flying cars in space.
Yeah, it's like that, isn't it?
It still sort of is uncharted territory, isn't it? Because the whole thing is developing so fast. I find even having a job that keeps me within aesthetics now rather than more widely within beauty, it's very hard to keep up with what's going on. What it's like for the consumer to try and understand that is another level of complexity.
Absolutely.
So even seeing all the stuff that's happening now, it's quite hard to imagine where it's going to go.
Well, hopefully we don't all end up looking like clones.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I like individual care and individuality, I think we should celebrate that. And hopefully We don't allow ourselves as humans to be slaves to this kind of fakery. Otherwise, I think that would be a very sad place.
Yeah. And if there's one overriding principle that guides you in your work, what's that?
To remain ethical at all times, put our patients at the center of every treatment plan, and remember, it's a team approach. It's very much a team approach. To get the very best outcomes, you need the right people around you, you need to think in the right way, you need to process in the right way, and be prepared to be honest with our patients. If you're honest with your patients and you have their interests at heart, I don't think you'll go too far wrong.